Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. Hi everybody, Tobias here, and I've got a marbles fixed blade I want to show you. It is the MR722. Now this is a pretty cool knife. It is currently available from SMKW, and well, let me just show it to you real quick here. That is the knife. About a 7.5 inch, 8-inch blade, something like that. Got a brass guard, brass pommel, olive drab, micarta here with a black spacer and also a brass spacer there. And this is by Marbles, like I said, the MR722. According to the website and everything I've heard about it, the blade steel is D2 tool steel. This is the sheath that comes with it. It's a fairly thick leather sheath, single strap to hold the blade in. You have a little compartment up front for a sharpening stone and with a little snap on top. Now, if you're looking at this knife and thinking that looks very familiar, yes, it absolutely does. Because the very first time I saw this, it was actually in Brian Wilhoit's office, and I saw it and it's like, is that what I think it is? And the answer was no. And it wasn't what I thought it was, because I saw it from a distance and it's like, I thought for sure it was a Model 1 Randall, because from a distance, it looks very much like a Model 1 Randall made knife, or a number 5 blackjack knife. It could have been either one. I said Randall, but I was wrong. It is actually by Marbles. But if you're familiar with either of those knives, you're looking at that and going, yeah, I can see where it was designed from. And I tell you, they did a really good job with this. Now, also something else I should mention is, for those who are not familiar with it, at one time, the blackjack trademark was owned by SMKW. That lasted for about 4 or 5 years, I think. They made some knives known as Blackjack International, which were knives that were made in China using the blackjack name. And then they also made blackjack knives here in the United States, including the number 5, which looks very similar to this. The basic difference is you'll see a little divot up on the top here. All of those knives, though, have like a 1/4 inch spine. Notice the spine on this. Now, this one is just shy of a 1/4 inch. And if you can see the swedge on the top here, the unsharpened swedge, it drops down to about a 1/16 of an inch at the tip there. And the Randall made is known as the Model 1 fighting knife. Obviously, as you can tell, this is not a knife that you would really consider for, it is really not designed so much for hunting. This is definitely a small buoy that is designed for, a fight. And a knife similar to this, like I said, the Model 1 by Randall was a very popular knife in Vietnam. And so much so that that's where I am familiar with it. I wasn't in Vietnam. I went into the Army after Vietnam, but I knew very well about the Randall knives, because that was a knife that a lot of people, when they were going, especially like officers and stuff, what they would end up doing is basically when they entered like West Point or their ROTC program and stuff, and they knew they were going to be graduating in 4 years, they would go ahead and place an order for a Randall knife, so that when it was time to graduate, their Randall knife would be ready for them, because at that time, the wait list for a Randall made knife, these were all handmade knives, was about 4 to 5 years. So the idea was to get your Randall before you went to Vietnam, because they wanted a solid, well-made knife that they could basically bet their life on. And the Model 1 was a very popular one. And as you can see, it really looks nice. This obviously, like I said, is not a Model 1. This is the 722 by Marvels. The actual Model 1 had an 01 tool steel blade versus a D2 tool steel blade. 01 was a much better steel than D2. Also, today's Randall Model 1 goes for $505. That is the starting price. Beyond that, then you start saying what you want for a handle and everything else, because they were custom made, individual for the person ordering it. So they would pick their handle materials, they pick their guards, everything, even right down to some parts of their sheath and everything like that. This knife, this is factory made in China, so it's quite a bit less expensive. However, a lot of people are going to look at the price on the SMKW site and say, I'm not going to spend that kind of money for a knife made in China. And I understand that entirely. I did not buy this one at that price either. They actually had a flash sale going on, and I looked at it and it's like, do I want to do it or do I not want to do it? And it's like, I really wanted the knife, but I wasn't crazy about the price. And it's like, I'm probably not going to find it for cheaper than that. So I jumped at the flash sale. I'm not regretting that I did it either, because, well, I'm really impressed with it. I don't know if you can see there, but you can see that palm swell there. It's got the wonderful palm swell. Fits the hand nicely. You've got a decent enough size grip on here. I think the grip area comes in right at yeah, about 4 3/4 inches. You can't see it there, right? Let's do it this way. See there, about 4 3/4 inches on the grip there, with that wonderful palm swell. You do have a slightly slanted pommel there. It is a brass pommel, so not the stiffest pommel. The one on a Randall would be a Duralume, which is an aluminum pommel, so also something that is not really designed for hammering or anything like that. You have a brass guard here, as opposed to what would normally be an aluminum guard, I believe, on the Randall. I'm not 100% sure on that. It might be a steel guard that they put on there. But definitely a nice looking knife. Now, I don't know about all of them. This was the sharpening stone that came with this one. It was in the pocket. It was inside a plastic bag. However, as you can tell here, mine was chipped. That's the way it came. It came chipped. I suppose I could call and say, hey, I got a chipped stone on my knife, and maybe they'd send one. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I've got a lot of other better sharpening stones than this. This seems to be like a silicone stone. I don't know what grit it is or anything like that, but it does fit the pocket fine. You got a good snap there. If you can see, that is some pretty thick leather there. Good positive snap on there too. And let's get the knife in here. Fits nicely. The snap also is strong enough, and you've got ample belt loop there. A very thick leather. For a Chinese-made sheath, I'm pretty impressed with this one. However, it could have been a little bit better. If you notice here, it is single stitched all the way around. The burnishing is okay. You can kind of see a spot down there. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be an opening so that there would be a drain hole or not. But at this point, I would not be able to put a drain hole in without cutting into these stitches here. So I'm just going to have to leave it as it is. But you can see right there, not perfect, but Also something that you would not really see too easily. And as I mentioned, it's pretty thick, and it is also wide enough to fit over a web belt. So that's also pretty good too. However, the one thing it is missing is what you will see here. This is the sheath for my my Camillus combat knife, marine combat knife. You know, the one that everyone likes to call like K-bar, even though it's by Camillus. Now this sheath is also 45 years old, but if you notice, it's got rivets along with the single stitching. And that is something that this sheath probably should have had also, is some rivets going on, especially if you're going to be using this in a combat situation or something like that, because the rivets will definitely help hold that sheath together when you start getting it wet and bounced around and strapping it to web gear and stuff like that. So that is, to me, probably the biggest problem with the sheath. Also, the leather is pretty stiff, but that is something that, you know, with conditioner and stuff, you can probably get it a little softer. And also, just from use, it will also break in and get softer. It's kind of like a baseball glove, you know. It's stiff when you first get it, but once you start using it for a while, it starts getting softer and starts working out, especially if you're actually carrying this on your web gear, because this sheath, when I first got it, was also kind of stiff, but not so stiff anymore. A few other things, let's compare it as long as I got it out. The difference in blades between the two. You can see the Camillus, the blade is a little bit wider. It also has the finger grip up here, which I like. You know, this is the fuller, but I like that because it's actually something where you can get your thumb and finger in there for fleshing and scraping and stuff like that, and you can get a sure grip on the blade that way. So I like the that part on the combat knife. It really helps. Also, if you can tell there, that edge is sharp. The top edge here, this is sharp. This is a swedge. It is a very thick swedge. I don't think you could easily get that sharpened, not without reprofiling the entire top edge. And this blade, you know, definitely shorter, but cutting edge is just about the same, probably about 1/8 of an inch shorter on the cutting edge here, because you can see that the you've got just about a 1/2 inch there versus about 3/4 of an inch over here. So cutting edge and everything on that is better. This knife also is surprisingly much lighter than this one, and part of that is right there. You're talking about almost a 1/4 inch blade stock versus just over 1/8 of an inch on the combat knife. So this is about half the thickness of this, which makes a big difference in weight. Also, this one has a, let's see if I can do this without get my legs spread apart. The balance on this one is right about there. It's right in that area right there. That's where the balance is. Yeah. The balance on this one, because of the heavy blade, is also, this one is right at the guard as well. So the balance is pretty good on both of them. This one though, you can kind of look at the tube. This one you can kind of see is really designed more for fighting, versus this one has a little bit more of a utilities type blade in there. So this one can be used for fighting. It is also a good blade for utility work. This one, definitely more for fighting. You've got a longer spine here that you can actually pound on if you need to. Also, you got a shorter spine here. You're going to have to, and if you notice where the spine is, it's just this portion, about 2 inches, that you can actually baton on. I suppose you could baton up here too, but you're talking about a slightly weaker blade up front here. This blade remains strong all the way out to about here, which is a little bit different. You got a longer spine with a little more strength going on there. Now, as you can tell, both of them have a push tang. I cannot tell how far in the push tang goes into this one, but you know this one goes all the way through. The other thing is, you can see that this is pinned on the bottom here, the cap, the pommel portion, and I have actually pounded nails in with this one. This one, because of its shape and also the fact that it is brass, I'm not sure I'd be able to pound a nail in with this one. But this one, in my youth and when I was younger and thought this knife could do just about anything and everything, I definitely pounded nails in with this with no problem, pounding them into a tree and everything else. So, and I'm talking about in far enough so that I could, well, let's say at least halfway in with a 3-inch nail, because I needed to hang something like a hammock or something. So I've used this knife to the point of abuse. How well this one would hold up, I do not know, because I have not done anything with it other than cut paper with it. And well, what I can tell you is it came pretty sharp out of the box. So I was pretty impressed with it when I first picked it up. You know, Z2 tool still, and cutting paper that easily was pretty good. And to be honest with you, when you consider it's a 1/4 inch thick, I really wasn't expecting it to do anything like that. It also has a nice stiff point, which easily pierced cardboard with no problem. So, you know, that's not saying much for a fighting knife. Really what I need to do is hack into something a little more useful, like maybe a big old side of ham or something like that, and see how well it cuts into that and such. But you know what? Ham costs a lot more money than a slice of paper. So we'll see what else I can do with it. But I am impressed with it. And for the price, I would say it is worth the price, even the full price that they're selling it for. But at the same time, I also know a lot of people are going to look at that going, I'm not going to pay that much money for a Chinese fixed blade. And I understand that too. But I don't think you would be able to get an American-made fixed blade of this quality for the 70 or 80 bucks that they're asking for this knife. It is really that good, especially when you compare it the leather sheath that comes with it. This is a substantial leather sheath. It does definitely has some issues. I mentioned what they were, but for the price and for just the overall build of this, I'm very happy with it. Anyway, with that said, I will let you go. Stick around for some slides, and if you want to see more of this, let me know. let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pious. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.